Phoenix Lady here. Welcome to the fifth and final part of the introduction to my Living the Delphian Way blog. Starting in 2003, I spent my days working for Adelphia Cable, then Time Warner Cable, and finally Charter Cable, also known as Spectrum. Same call center, just different owners and employers. I also spent a lot of time working on the design of the villages of tomorrow, as well as other home designs, in hopes I could find some backers to help me build them. Never happened. I figure that's because I'm always at least 50 years ahead of the times. Oh well. Maybe I'll share some of the designs later, although you can always look at the videos I've already posted, or read the Starfield Valley Tales available on Amazon. I also spent too much time in the aughts and early teens dealing with a younger woman with serious mental health issues. My husband took her in as a kind of foster daughter in 2003 and finally decided he'd had enough. 6 years, 3 residences, and roughly 3 husbands later, and told her to get out, although she remained in our lives until he passed away in 2017. She was absolutely the worst crybaby I ever had to deal with. Ugh, enough said about her. After my husband passed, I retired from Charter Cable / Spectrum for a variety of reasons, not least of which was that at 66 I could retire without penalty. I spent the next 2 years dealing with my confused feelings about losing my husband and with the realization that I had never had to deal with life on my own. The 2 men living with us, then me, as roomies, were no help, and at the time I was essentially unchurched. My decision. I made some seriously but typical bad financial decisions that resulted in the loss of my retirement savings to what the FTC labeled as a scam after I got into it. However, I did learn one hard lesson. I hate trying to run any kind of business. I simply don't have the mindset for it. This has greatly increased my admiration for those who do run businesses, especially the small mom and pop businesses we tend to take for granted. It became evident at the beginning of 2019 that I would have to sell my very empty and lonely house and move to Montana to live with my brother. That was not fun. At least this time, I didn't have to listen to not 1, but 4 cats whining about the 2-day journey from Colorado Springs to Bozeman, Montana. Poor Emery. He's the one that got to listen to it. However, with a lot of help and financing from my sister, we got the house fixed up. It sold for more than enough to pay off the mortgage, the money my sister put into it, my car, and all of my credit card debt. I even had a little left over, enough to set up a Roth IRA and begin slowly rebuilding my retirement stash in case socialist insecurity, as my husband always called it, goes away in the onrushing collapse. This assumes, of course, I'm still among the living when the perfect storm hits. To be honest, I hope I'm not. I'd much rather be out there in reality, exploring the multiverse, than dealing with the crybabies who'd rather curl up and die in a black hole of nothingness if reality doesn't give them what they think they want. We all know what's happened to space development since I dropped out. Kudos to Elon Musk for getting as far as he has with SpaceX, and to Jeff Bezos with Blue Origins, as well as Richard Branson and Virgin Galactic. I've followed or in following and working on space development for the last 50 years. I've learned that it is far harder to make history than to write fantastic tales about what could be. This is the lesson the crybabies in every generation fail to learn. The millennials, who have become the latest generation of crybabies, and by no means do all millennials fall into that category, they really are only the latest generation to fall into this trap. Too many of us boomers were also crybabies back in the 60s and 70s. While some of us grew up and became adults, others chose not to. And all too many of them became teachers and journalists determined to change the world into their image of perfection. If they and their students succeed in destroying history because they refuse to believe the cold, hard fact that no one can go back and change any choice once made, then, as Santayana and many others have said, those who refuse to learn history are doomed to repeat it. While history may not repeat exactly, it does rhyme. Just watch and listen to the podcasts, The Fall of Civilization, if you don't believe me. See the links in the description below. It's really too bad we now have no hope of settling space, because the crybabies currently in charge can't bear the thought of losing control of the adults they believe should be their slaves. I'd love to be proven wrong, but we're headed into a perfect storm wherein we face the total collapse of civilization under the hooves of the four horsemen of the apocalypse. I'll deal with all that in later posts. For now, I'd just like to ask the crybabies what they think will happen to them when all the adults are gone, wherever and however we go. Phoenix Lady, out.